Thank you, Mr. President. I would also like to thank Deputy Special Coordinator Ramiz Alakbarov for his comprehensive briefing. Mr. President, the international community now stands at a crossroad. With the adoption of Resolution 2803 last week, we can now choose a path toward a better future with lasting stability in Gaza. On the other hand, players in the region, state or non-state actors, may decide to pursue another path of endless violence and confrontation. At this critical juncture, it is vital for the international community, including the Security Council, to help the region navigate in the right direction. And we believe that the smooth and faithful implementation of Resolution 2803 provides an essential groundwork to this end. Mr. President, as my delegation mentioned in this chamber last week, some elements provided in the resolution need development and operationalization, includes engagement with the Security Council. However, this resolution also reflects clear and undeniable requirements for its implementation, including the maintenance of the ceasefire. To guarantee the swift establishment of the Board of Peace and deployment of the International Stabilization Force, parties to the conflict in Gaza must not resume any hostilities. In this regard, Israel's airstrikes last week, killing dozens of Palestinians across the Strait, are seriously concerning. We once again call on the parties to strictly observe the ceasefire agreement. With the adoption of Resolution 2803, breaking the ceasefire is not only the violation of the agreement, but also of this resolution. We also would like to stress that this Council reaffirmed its position through the adoption last week that Hamas must lay down its weapons and cannot take part in the future governance of Gaza. We believe that the BOP and the ISF will commence its work as soon as possible in close coordination with its Council. The full resumption of humanitarian aid at scale through the UN system must also be ensured. Shelters and tents must be allowed in as winter approaches. We welcome the opening of the Erez West crossing and the continued operation of 19 UN-supported bakeries across Gaza. We also commend, with appreciation, the coordination of humanitarian works through the US-led CMCC. We also support international efforts for the recovery and reconstruction of Gaza, which was totally flattened during the war. Mr. President, while we have hailed the recent developments in Gaza, in the West Bank we remain deeply worried by the deteriorating situation. Extended military operations, expansion of settlements, and widespread movement restrictions comprise only a small portion of the protracted suffering of Palestinians. We take note that the highest-level Israeli officials expressed grave concern over the rampant and unjustifiable violence by settlers. We condemn this deplorable violence committed by settlers against innocent Palestinians and their agriculture and land. And we call on Israel to take concrete measures to prevent recurrence. Mr. President, when the war in Gaza broke out 2 years ago as a massive military response by Israel to the terrorist attacks by Hamas, many members of this Council strongly warned of spillover effects. And unfortunately, we all witnessed the devastating consequences all across the Middle East, including in Lebanon, Syria, and Yemen. As new hope arises in Gaza, we must seize this opportunity to change the course regionally from confrontation to harmony, and from one-state reality to the realization of the two-state solution. Therefore, we urge all actors in the region to exercise restraint, respect basic principles under the Charter, and seriously engage in diplomacy, including revitalized dialogue between Israel and Palestinians to chart a political horizon for peaceful and prosperous coexistence that we hope to be established under Resolution 2803. Mr. President, recently President Lee Jae-myung of the Republic of Korea visited Egypt, and in his address at Cairo University, he reaffirmed Korea's commitment to contributing to a peaceful and prosperous future for the region. He highlighted Korea's readiness to advance cooperation with the MENA region under the 5 key pillars of SHINE: stability, harmony, information, network, and education. President Lee also announced a new Korean pledge of $10 million to the Egyptian Red Crescent to help improve humanitarian conditions and provide humanitarian aid to displaced people from Gaza. Here in this chamber, the Republic of Korea solemnly reiterates a strong will to actively contribute to opening a new chapter of peace in the Middle East based on stability and harmony. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of the Republic of Korea for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Greece.
President, at the outset, let me thank the Deputy Special Coordinator Ramis Al-Akbarov for his comprehensive remarks. Today, I wish to highlight the following points. First, the adoption of Resolution 2803, which Greece firmly supported, marks an important milestone in our collective efforts to stop the catastrophe, giving international legitimacy to the bodies and structures that will oversee and coordinate the implementation of the 20-point peace plan, and hinting that sustainable peace is indeed attainable. The resolution also opens the path for reconstruction and development with the involvement of the World Bank and international donors, making it clear that constructive cooperation among all stakeholders is essential. We look forward to its implementation and additional modalities to be unfolded in the coming period. Second, Greece has been consistent in its calls for a ceasefire for the safe and unhindered delivery of humanitarian aid at scale, recognizing that more needs to be done, more humanitarian corridors must become operational, calling for the urgent lifting of all remaining restrictions. To this end, we support the operations of the UN and its agencies and partners in the Strip, and we welcome the ongoing WHO vaccination campaign and the fact that thousands of children under the age of 3 have already been vaccinated. A lot has to be done urgently. The upcoming and adverse weather conditions are adding urgency to the need for shelter, sanitation, and heating, especially for the most vulnerable Palestinians whose shelters remain at least inadequate. The role of UNRWA is indispensable, taking also into account the ICJ's most recent advisory opinion. Greece has consistently contributed and has recently increased its contribution as the agency advances along the implementation of the Kelowna recommendations. Third, the situation in the West Bank merits our focus. According to the UN reports, there has been a sharp rise in settler violence, especially in recent weeks, with devastating impact on olive harvesting communities, property destruction and displacement. OCHA has recorded the highest monthly toll of settler attacks in years. We condemn settlement expansion and settler violence, including against Christian communities, and we reiterate our call for the preservation of the status quo and of the holy sites in the old city of Jerusalem. Increased violence, displacement, and fragmentation of the West Bank undermine the foundations of the two-state solution and the prospect of the peace plan. Fourth, Greece reaffirms its steadfast support for a two-state solution. Security Council Resolution 2803 laid the foundation for a path toward Palestinian self-determination and statehood. The two-state solution, as reaffirmed by the international community during the conference co-chaired by France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and by the New York Declaration, lies at the end of our collective path. The peace plan, backed now by the Security Council resolution, creates a strong impetus toward an accelerated, comprehensive regional integration and the formation of a new inclusive regional security architecture, also through the expansion of the Abraham Accords. In conclusion, President, Greece remains hopeful. The recent ceasefire, although fragile, Security Council Resolution 2803 and diplomatic momentum offer a rare window for stabilization and renewed political engagement. In this context, it is imperative that an empowered and reformed Palestinian Authority should be in a position to exert effective control over Gaza and the West Bank. Greece, alongside its partners, will do its utmost to support the reform process of the Palestinian Authority, for Hamas will have no role of any form in the day after. This Council must remain vigilant, united, and determined to sustain momentum towards a two-state solution, where Israelis and Palestinians can live side by side in peace and security. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Greece for the statement, and I'll give the floor to the representative of the United States.
Thank you, and thank you to Deputy Special Coordinator Alok Barav for the briefing this morning. Last week was a historic week for the Council and for the region. A peaceful Middle East with a stable Gaza, free from Hamas's grip, is closer than ever with Resolution 2803. This is grounded in President Trump's comprehensive plan to end the conflict in Gaza. Adopted with overwhelming support